Hi everyone, this is Celine from Blue Calla Patterns. Welcome to video 3 for the Honeysuckle Hobo bag. For this video, you'll need to gather the following pieces: your bottom exterior piece, your gusset zipper facing piece, which should be in the same fabric as your exterior gusset pieces, both of your exterior side gusset pieces, and you'll need the zipper pocket pieces for your gusset zipper pocket. So you'll remember you have two different sizes. They're both 9 inches high, but one is 10 inches wide and the other one is 5 1/4 inches wide. And then you'll also need your 7-inch zipper or whatever zipper tape if you're using zipper tape instead. So what we're going to start with is the installing of the zipper pocket. So you'll want to take the side gusset piece that has the rectangle cut out, the rectangle shape cut out for the zipper pocket installation. The other one you can just set aside for now. And then you'll take the pattern piece and punch out a hole at the top corners of the dashed shape, the dashed line shape, where we show the placement of the facing piece. So you'll just place that over top and just mark with either something erasable or disappearing ink fabric pen. Just mark the location of the two top corners for the facing piece. Okay, and then you'll take your gusset zipper facing piece, and on the wrong side use the pattern piece and draw out the rectangle opening on the wrong side. Okay, and then you'll take this the facing piece and you're going to line up the top corners with those marks that we just made. Okay. Okay, and you want to make sure that this is perfectly straight vertically. And we'll take some pins and pin this facing in place. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm actually going to sew along the lines that I just drew. Use a shorter stitch length and keep your needle in the down position to make rotating at the corners easier, and it'll give you a nice rectangular shape opening for your zipper pocket. Okay, so I've sewn around the rectangle shape that we drew. Now I'm just going to draw a line through the center, but I'm not going to draw the line all the way from one end to the other. I'm just going to draw and leave a 1/2 inch on either end, and then I will draw a diagonal line from that center line to each of the 4 corners. And now we need to cut out along those lines that we just drew. And you're cutting through all the layers. Make sure you use a really sharp pair of scissors when you're doing the diagonal lines, and you want to cut as close as you can to the corner without cutting any of your stitching. Okay, and then we're going to pull the facing through the opening towards the wrong side. Okay, I'm just going to set up my ironing station and then we'll continue. All right, so you're just going to pull the facing piece through the opening you just cut towards the wrong side. And just like I did for the other zipper opening, I find if you dampen your fingers and then you roll that seam allowance, roll the seam between your fingertips, and then you just kind of do a little finger pressing before you iron. Now this does take a bit of time to make a really nice zipper opening, but I find it's worth it to go slowly and make a really nice zipper opening. And what I like to do is press from the right side and then also the wrong side. Okay, so now I'm just going to press from the wrong side. Now if you have a little bit of puckering at the corners, I find if you just kind of tug a little bit, they'll flatten themselves out. Okay. So that looks good. So I'm going to set that aside for now. And now you'll need your zipper pocket lining pieces and your zipper. You'll start with the shorter zipper. So, sorry, it would be the narrower lining piece, because this is actually going to end up being the height of our zipper pocket lining. And this here will be the width. So you're going to, now my zipper here, I cut longer because I'm using zipper tape, so it's going to stick out on the sides. If you're using a prepared 7-inch zipper, it's not going to look like this. Let me just grab a 7-inch zipper. Okay, so if you're using an actual 7-inch zipper, it's going to look a little bit more like this. But for my case, this is what it looks like. So I'm just going to pin in or clip this along the, so this, I'm doing this along the 9-inch side. And if you're using a directional print, you'll want the direction of the print. This is facing up here. So I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm going to sew this in place with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, so this is sewn into place. I'm just going to, so this is very much the same as the front exterior pocket that we sewed in the previous video. Okay, so I'm just pressing that away from the zipper, and then I'm going to take my remaining zipper pocket lining piece and just rotate it this way. So here you want the direction of the print to be in the same direction. If you're not using a directional print, that doesn't really matter. And I'm going to attach the other side of the zipper to the 9-inch side of this lining piece. And again, I'm going to sew them together with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so these are now sewn together as well, and I'm just going to repeat the same and press this away from the zipper. Okay, so I've also, if you're using zipper tape like me, I just did some quick basting stitches here at the opening of the zipper so that it stays shut. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pull through here. Take your gusset that has the zipper pocket opening, place it over top, like so. And I make sure that the bottom edge of the facing, I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. So here I make sure that the bottom edge here is aligned with the bottom edges of my zipper pocket lining pieces. So I'm just going to clip this together here. And then same at the top, your facing piece should be lined up quite well with the top edges. And I'm actually going to pin these together. I'm just going to move my ironing pad out of the way for a minute. Makes it easier to pin. Now, some people prefer to use tape or glue to do this part. I just pin at the top and the bottom because I like to adjust the position to make sure my zipper is perfectly centered in the opening as I'm sewing my zipper in place. So now you go over to your machine and you're going to sew all the way around the rectangle box, the opening, and you're going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to sew the zipper in place. Okay, so I've sewn around the rectangle opening, and now you're just going to flip this over, and you're going to take this lining piece and you're going to fold it over so that the edges here, the edges on the right hand side will meet. Okay, and then it will create a bit of a fold here. So I'm just going to quickly pin these together. Now, do not include this part here, the side gusset. Just pin the edges of the two lining pocket pieces together. I almost ironed on my mat again. Okay. So I just kind of press the folded edge flat. Okay. Then I'm going to finish clipping these together. And this time, to sew the pocket sides, you're actually sewing the top and the bottom edges, and you're going to flip it this way, flip this out of the way, and then you're going to sew all the way from the folded edge all the way to the raw edges, and make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. You're including the facing piece, but you're not including the exterior side gusset in this seam. Same on this side. Flip this out of the way, and then you're going to sew from one end to the other, making sure that you backstitch. Okay, so I've sewn along the top and the bottom edge here. I'm going to turn it over. Now you're going to go over to your sewing machine again, and you're just going to sew here along this edge and along this edge, and you're going to include all the layers, so the exterior here and then the 2 layers of lining pocket pieces. So sew through the entire thing along both edges. Okay, so I've sewn along the edges. Now I just want to trim away some of the lining piece that is sticking out the sides here. So you just follow the curve of the side gusset piece when you're trimming here. And I also have some excess zipper tape here that I would like to have out of the way. So I'm just going to cut this out. And then again, I'm just going to melt the end of my zipper here to seal it. Make sure that I don't burn any of my fabric while I'm doing that. And the last part here is pretty simple. We're just going to attach both of our side gussets to the bottom of our bag, the exterior bottom of our bag. So I'll start with this piece. And you're going to be matching the shorter side with the bottom edge here. I'm just going to clip these together. And I'm going to sew this with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then if you're using fabric, you'll be able to press the seam allowance towards the bottom and then top stitch along the bottom. But I'm using cork, so I'm just going to finger press. But first I'm going to start by sewing these together. Okay, so these are sewn together. So if you have, you're using fabric, like I said, you can press the seam allowance going towards the bottom and then top stitch here along the edge of the bottom piece. I'm using cork, so I'm just going to finger press and then top stitch. Okay, this is attached, top stitch. We're going to repeat exactly the same thing to attach this second side gusset piece to the other shorter end of the bottom piece, like so. And again, I'm going to sew them together, and then I will do the top stitching exactly as I just did for this seam. So the gusset is fully assembled now. The only thing I want to do before we continue is to mark the centers on either side of the bottom piece, and it is approximately 9 1/4 inches between the seams. I don't like to fold my my cork in half to mark the centers. That's why I'm using a ruler. So I'm just going to do 9 1/4 and divide that in half. So I have 4 5/8, and I just want to mark that on both sides. Okay, and then I can set that aside. So this was a rather short video. The next video will be a bit longer. We're going to assemble the lining panels, the 2 main lining panels of our bag, as well as our lining gusset.